autopsy report, as I said, there's new court documents out today. It even says the medical examiner report is pending. Now, they're probably holding that information back from the public on purpose. We don't necessarily know why, but my understanding from speaking with a couple of people high up at Turning Point USA, they let me know that the injury took place right below the jaw in the C2. The bullet crashed through C2 all the way through C7, and then they found the bullet lodged in that meaty area around T1, the thoracic first vertebrae. What would the autopsy look like? Would they be trying to follow the path of the bullet? Would they be doing X-rays to find the bullet, or a metal detector? What does that look like in the event of a gunshot wound?
So when they bring the body back, they do an external exam. They take pictures. They do all the documenting that they can before they do the internal exam. And what that involves, there's no metal detectors, but they do X-rays of the body that will reveal bullets, fragments, and trajectory before they do the dissection.
Okay.
Metal detectors are just too crude compared to imaging. We really want the imaging, especially in a murder investigation.
Would X-ray have been the main imaging? Because I would assume they avoid MRI because of metal, but is X-ray the number one?
Yes. Yep. And when you X-ray the body, it can also be helpful to them before they do any sort of dissection to know what they're looking for and where about the location of the wound and the fragments might be.
The place that we should start on today's show is with, I first and foremost have to tell you right at the top, I can't tell you exactly who the information came from or which parties were involved in giving me this information because I don't want to get anybody in trouble. But I can say that I have positively verified something about the injury that Charlie sustained to his neck that I think is going to go a very long way in terms of helping those of us who have been sleuthing, those of us who want answers, those of us who are dedicating our time to this because what we are being told by the authorities beggars belief. As John and Arena Mappin said, it just simply beggars belief. We also want to make sure that we are presenting evidence and debunking one another where we can so that all of us can collectively zero in and build upon whatever facts we have in this decentralized investigation. This is about the injury, okay? So Andrew Kovats was, I can tell you, telling the truth in part when he wrote that very long tweet in which he tried to explain why there was no exit wound. Do you recall this? Long story short, he said, I'm going to read it. I want to address some of the things that the lack of an exit wound, about the lack of an exit wound with Charlie. I'm usually not interested in delving into most of this kind of online chatter, and I apologize if this is somewhat graphic, but in this case, the fact that there wasn't an exit wound is probably another miracle, and I want people to know. I just spoke with the surgeon who worked on Charlie in the hospital. He said the bullet absolutely should have gone through, which is very normal for a high-powered, high-velocity round. I've seen wounds from this caliber many times, and they always just go through everything. This would have taken a moose or two down, an elk, etc., but it didn't go through. Charlie's body stopped it. I mentioned to his doctor that there were dozens of staff, students, and special guests standing directly behind Charlie on the other side of the tent, and he replied, it was an absolute miracle that someone else didn't get killed. His bone was so healthy and the density was so impressive that he's like the man of steel. It should have just gone through and through. It likely would have killed those standing behind him too. In the end, the coroner did find the bullet just beneath the skin. Even in death, Charlie managed to save the lives of those around him. Remarkable, miraculous.
Here on the channel before, Valhalla VFT shot through actual steel plates, 1/4 inch, 3/4 inch, and 1/2 inch steel plates, and it punched through every single one every single time. So
miraculous. Now keep that up for just a second because it's really around here. His bone was so healthy and the density was so impressive that he's like the man of steel that we just went, something's not right. Something not right. A lot of stuff's not right, but I just don't know why a surgeon would be saying something that actually only the medical examiner, somebody that specializes in forensics, could really contribute. Yes, a surgeon can tell you, or actually any person with common sense can tell you that your bone density is better when you're younger, but this seemed a little bit too performative. Now, I can tell you the part that he is telling the truth about is that Charlie's neck indeed did stop the bullet without question. Okay, and this is going to dispel a lot of theories that are out there. And I'm telling you this 100%. Charlie Kirk was shot from the front, and the bullet did not exit. And at least a fragment of the bullet was recovered from his neck. And I'm going to tell you exactly where it was recovered from. I have fact-checked this information from multiple sources now. I've actually been sitting on this for a little bit over a week. Right around here. So think about almost in line with your shoulder blade right in the center. Now, why is that helpful? Because it gives us a bullet trajectory, okay? Went in here where you saw that, and it was stopped, and a fragment was pulled from, think of, right, if you're just touching your spine in line with your shoulder blade.
Here, my email. This is from this guy right here. I'm not going to try to pronounce that email. But when it's coming from a faceless, nameless individual, it's very hard to determine what is actually real information, what is somebody who's actually looking for the truth versus what is deliberate disinformation. Now, am I accusing this guy of that? No, I have no reason to. This is a extremely detailed breakdown. We're not going to go through all this, but I know there's other guys who've already done videos on this guy's email because he sent it to multiple people. And I'm going to just go through and talk about what I think is just abhorrently untrue. Because there's one thing about this theory that I think has legs and is worth looking into, and that is the vehicle parked under the underpass here. So here's the images of the vehicle. Someone was running through the tunnel and he screenshotted a few frames from this video where you can see that there's something silhouetting itself, looks like the front of a rifle here in the backseat of this vehicle. So as you guys can see right here, he screenshotted this video where the trunk is open here at 28 seconds, and at 23 seconds it's closed. So the trunk opens right before the shot, and then it is closed after the shot when everybody's running by. It is very suspicious. It would match up with a more likely bullet trajectory. He has it bouncing off the bottom of the skull here. And again, I think this is for him to try to explain Stephen Gardner's claims from TPUSA of it striking the C2 through the C7. But then again, this is making the assumption that the back of the human skull is strong enough to deflect a high power rifle caliber round that is traveling upwards of 23 to 2,500 feet per second, potentially, in a 5.56 gun, and to stop it on a dime and turn it 80 degrees downward into his spine, that is a big assumption. Is it possible the bullet deflected from a hard bone? Absolutely. I think a much more likely trajectory is if it did come in this way, bouncing off the skull, riding out and punching out the front here. This guy has a ton of explanations for this puff in the back of Charlie's shirt and the shot coming from directly behind being the reason for that. I do think that there's legs and there is a reason to look into the vehicle that was parked under the underpass because there is a very strange silhouette in the vehicle. So am I 100% on board with this? No, I still think it is way too close for comfort. If I'm the shooter, if I'm a professional shooter, I think that's a little too close. Personally, I'd like to be a lot more disconnected from the action once it happens.
Everyone suddenly has something to say. Comment sections are exploding, news outlets are scrambling, and now the one thing that was never meant to be public has mysteriously surfaced. An alleged autopsy leak tied to Charlie Kirk and Tyler Robinson, not released respectfully, not presented officially. No, quietly slipped into the public like bait, just enough to stir chaos, but not enough to provide real answers. And then, right on cue, a new suspect appears. A figure on camera, a being passed off as closure, but timing speaks louder than headlines. Please, before we move on, don't forget to drop your comment as you listening to this new updates. We would definitely respond to all comment. We will be glad to hear your feedbacks on this report. We stand for justice. We stand for Charlie. So let's ask what nobody else seems willing to. If this evidence truly existed, why wasn't it shown earlier? Why is the public only trusted with half-truths? Because if even one detail in that autopsy leak is accurate, then someone, somewhere, has not been honest from the very start. So are we being protected from the truth about what happened to Charlie Kirk and Tyler Robinson? Or are we simply being shielded from someone's mistakes? What do you think? Is the case moving forward carefully, or is progress being slowed by procedural delays? Share your thoughts in the comments below. That's where we hear your thought. 'Cause we will definitely respond to all comment. And where are you watching from? To stay updated on every development, subscribe now, turn on notifications, and also don't hesitate to support this movement so you stay informed as new update becomes available. This is Detective Max, and together we fight for justice. An autopsy is supposed to bring clarity. It's where speculation ends and facts begin. It should tell us what happened, when it happened, and whether there was any possibility that it could have been prevented. But in the case of Charlie Kirk and Tyler Robinson, instead of offering closure, the report has become a mystery of its own. Instead of transparency, we're getting fragments. Instead of an official statement, we're getting leaks, scattered into the public like breadcrumbs. So let's be honest, if the truth is clear, why is it being delivered in pieces? Why aren't the families and the public seeing the full report in one complete document, the way it should be presented? Because when a human life is lost, paperwork should not be treated like classified intel. Why is the cause of death treated like a secret, while speculation is allowed to spread freely? If there is nothing to hide, then release everything. Why guard documents tighter than justice itself? Leaks don't just happen. Information like this doesn't just wander onto the internet by accident, especially when it's tied to names like Charlie Kirk and Tyler Robinson. So here's a possibility no one wants to consider. What if these leaks aren't about revealing the truth, but controlling it? Release just enough to spark outrage, but never enough to provide resolution. Because if people stay divided, arguing over clipped screenshots and half statements, they'll never unite to demand the full picture. Look at the timeline. First comes public pressure, then comes silence from the top. And only when the noise gets too loud, suddenly something leaks. Not officially released, not verified, just conveniently placed. And while we're all here, arguing over which headline feels more believable, someone out there is sleeping comfortably because they've successfully redirected our anger. Instead of asking who delayed the information, we're busy fighting over what little they chose to show us. And that right there is not transparency, it's strategy. Have you noticed the timing? Every time public outrage grows, when hashtags rise, when news outlets begin asking harder questions, suddenly, almost magically, a new suspect appears. Not before, not proactively, only after pressure builds. So let's be rational about this. Did the evidence just now appear, or was it just now released? Because both cannot be true. If this new lead was discovered recently, fine, show the process, show the timeline, walk us through it. But if this evidence existed earlier, and was simply withheld until the public demanded answers, then that changes everything. Because while Charlie Kirk's name was debated online, while Tyler Robinson's case turned into speculation, there was a family grieving in silence. And if someone somewhere was holding on to answers during that pain, then that silence wasn't just hesitation. It was cruelty, not illegal, not violent, but emotionally unforgivable. We live in a world where every second of surveillance is stored, archived, and retrievable, until it involves cases like this. Suddenly, what should be full, uninterrupted footage turns into short clips, cropped frames, and carefully cut down segments released to the public in doses, never in context. Why? If the goal is truth, why are we seeing glimpses instead of the whole picture? You and I are trusted to pay taxes. We're trusted to obey laws. We're trusted to stay calm when chaos hits. But when it comes to seeing the one piece of evidence that could clear someone or confirm guilt, suddenly we're not trusted with the full story. They tell us, it's for legal reasons, it's for safety, it's for our protection. But withholding information rarely protects the public. It protects narratives. If the footage proves innocence, show it. If it reveals guilt, show it. Don't give us pieces and expect us to build the truth on our own. We don't need captions. We need context. Because partial evidence doesn't build closure, it builds doubt. Let's make one thing clear. Asking for answers is not an act of aggression. Demanding transparency is not rebellion. We are not calling for riots. We are calling for receipts. The people watching this, mothers, fathers, students, workers, we're not here to tear anything down. We just refuse to be left in the dark. Because truth is not dangerous. Silence is. The public is not the threat. We are the witnesses. The only ones left who still care enough to ask what really happened to Charlie Kirk and Tyler Robinson. And if we stop asking, the story ends on someone else's terms. That's why we stand firm. Not with anger, but with accountability. Not as enemies of the system, but as its reminder. Justice does not fear questions, only lies do. At this point, it's not just about Charlie Kirk. It's not just about Tyler Robinson. Their names may be at the center, but the consequences reach far beyond them. Because if evidence can be delayed, if reports can be leaked selectively, if footage can be clipped and controlled, then this isn't just a failure of one investigation. It's a warning to every citizen watching. Because if this can happen to one person, it can happen to anyone. And the day we stop asking questions is the day we all become suspects. That's why people are speaking up. Not to attack, not to divide, but because trust, once broken, demands to be rebuilt, not ignored. We don't want chaos. We don't want conspiracy. We just want clarity. And if that's too much to ask, then the problem isn't with the public. It's with whoever believes the public shouldn't see the full truth. They can redact documents. They can trim footage. They can leak carefully selected lines to steer the story. But there's one thing they cannot censor: us. They can dismiss speculation. They can avoid interviews. They can hide behind phrases like ongoing investigations and classified information. But they cannot silence a million voices asking the same simple question. Show us everything. What are you so afraid of? No hate, no chaos, just truth. And until that truth is seen in full, not in leaks, not in fragments, we'll keep watching, we'll keep asking, and we will not move on. Not because we're obsessed with controversy, but because Charlie Kirk deserves truth. Tyler Robinson deserves truth. Their families deserve truth. And if truth really is on their side, then why not let the world see it? Don't let this case become just another headline we scroll past. If you believe transparency should be standard, not a privilege, then make it known. Share this, comment your thoughts, ask the question they keep dodging. Where is the full footage? Where is the full report? We're not here to attack. We're here to witness. And witnesses don't stay silent.